the party is so focused on this new enthusiasm that they have. But now you're starting to see that it is kind of crashing through a little bit this week. Some pro-Palestinian groups wanted to have a pro-Palestinian speaker on the stage. That request was rejected. So you saw like Rashida Tlaib, one of the more outspoken progressive Democrats, basically call out her party, saying that they're pushing this, quote, false narrative of hope and unity during this convention, when, you know, she's basically saying it isn't that way. And, you know, I think Kamala Harris is now going to have to start dealing with those same things that Joe Biden had to.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by congressional reporter Cami Mondeaux. Cami, there's been a lot of concern on Capitol Hill about the conduct of the Secret Service after the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. Congressional Republicans in particular seem to be fracturing a little bit over this. What have been the latest developments?
Right, so shortly after the assassination attempt, you saw House Republicans and even House Democrats were very concerned with how the federal agencies had responded to that. So they created this joint task force. It's bipartisan with 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats. This task force has subpoena power. They're able to investigate really what went on with the Secret Service and FBI. We saw a couple House Republicans who weren't put on that task force who were a little upset that they weren't chosen. And so they kind of created their independent task force that doesn't have the same subpoena authority. They don't have that same power. But you're starting to see that fracture, as you said, because both groups are going to be having their own hearings and press conferences on Monday, the same day. So you're seeing the official task force go up to the shooting site in Butler, Pennsylvania on Monday. They're going to be holding a press conference with local officials. At the same time, you're going to be seeing that independent task force have their own hearing. They're going to have witnesses with former Secret Service agents. So you're starting to see this break. It's not entirely clear whether they'll have different information or really what that independent task force thinks they can get that the official one will get. But you are starting to see, especially they're being held on the same day, you're starting to see that break.
So there's another inquiry that congressional Republicans have been really interested in, and that's the impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. And now that Biden's not running for re-election and there are all these other sort of things to worry about, that seems to have run its course, but there was still a report. What are the developments there?
Right, it really did seem to have reached an anticlimactic end this week, or basically, this was the biggest story on Capitol Hill for the last nearly 2 years. House Republicans were really pushing for this impeachment of President Joe Biden. Now that he's not at the top of the ticket, it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal anymore.
Right.
They're on their August recess. Nobody's on Capitol Hill, so they quietly released this report Monday morning. Democrats are at the Democratic National Convention, so that's dominating all of the headlines. So it really kind of got buried in a way that you wouldn't expect, a couple months ago when Joe Biden was still running for the presidency. So it didn't really get as much attention as you would have thought. This was the big thing the House Republicans sold their majority on, and it really didn't get much fanfare.
And so the focus was on business dealings involving Hunter Biden, or?
Right, yeah. So it was all of the business dealings with the Biden family in particular. A lot of House Republicans, you saw like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, let's take this, let's run with it, let's impeach him anyway. Other House Republicans that I spoke to, kind of on background and off the record earlier this week, it seems they're more concerned with moving on and making sure they can keep their House majority.
Right. Which is very narrow.
Exactly. So they're more focused on just, moving on. They don't seem that interested now that it's out there.
So you mentioned the Democratic National Convention, and the big theme is joy, joy, everybody's really happy. But there are some congressional Democrats who say they're not so happy.
Right, so you're starting to see those same issues that Joe Biden faced while he was still the nominee, where these uncommitted delegates or these progressive Democrats who are really upset with the way that the White House, the Biden administration have handled, the war in Israel, calling for a ceasefire. Kamala Harris hasn't had to deal with that so much yet because, as you said, the party is so focused on this new enthusiasm that they have. But now you're starting to see that it is kind of crashing through a little bit this week. Some pro-Palestinian groups wanted to have a pro-Palestinian speaker on the stage. That request was rejected. So you saw like Rashida Tlaib, one of the more outspoken progressive Democrats, basically call out her party, saying that they're pushing this, quote, false narrative of hope and unity during this convention, when she's basically saying it isn't that way. And I think Kamala Harris is now going to have to start dealing with those same things that Joe Biden had to.
Right, it's going to be interesting given that Tlaib's from a swing state that first Biden and now Harris is trying to carry in November.
Absolutely, yeah, especially because she did face a censure resolution early last year. So it is like an issue that is a bit touchy even for Democrats, but it's something that won't be going away.
Thank you, Cami. You can read Cami and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.